I didn't know it at the time, but that walk to the hotel would turn into one of the most frightening nights of my life. It started with something small, a power outage. By morning, my apartment was completely dark, and the outage was expected to last several days. With the heat becoming unbearable and my dog clearly uncomfortable, I decided to book a nearby hotel. It took hours to find one that accepted pets and didn't cost a fortune, but eventually I managed. Getting there was supposed to be easy. It wasn't. Cabs never showed up. Ride apps refused to connect. Later, I learned there was a graduation ceremony nearby and every driver in the area was already booked. As the sun began to set, I packed a bag, clipped my dog's leash, and decided to walk the mile to the hotel. About 10 minutes in, I heard footsteps behind me. A tall, heavy-built man caught up and started walking beside me. He looked me up and down before casually asking where I was headed. I was new to the area, alone, and already on edge, but instead of panicking, I forced myself to stay polite. He offered to carry my bags. I said no. He asked again. I said no again. He told me he was heading near the same place, so I kept talking, hoping that staying friendly would keep things safe. I lied and said I had family nearby and was in town for graduation, anything to make it sound like people would notice if I didn't arrive. Then, without warning, he reached into his pocket. "You might need this," he said, placing a small knife into my hand. I thanked him, even though my fingers were shaking. As we kept walking, he talked to himself, then casually suggested I move in with his niece. Minutes later, he told me he felt a connection, that he could picture us someday. When another pedestrian appeared ahead of us, he suddenly shoved me to the inside of the sidewalk and said, "You walk here now. You're mine." My heart was pounding. Thankfully, more people began appearing as the graduation crowd spilled into the streets. I stayed as close to them as I could until the hotel finally came into view. Inside, the man followed me straight to the front desk. That's when I was told I couldn't stay because of my age. My stomach dropped. I quietly asked a staff member for help. She pulled me aside. When another employee confronted the man, he claimed I was his girlfriend and that we'd known each other for years. They didn't believe him. Security removed him, and one employee stayed with me for over an hour while they worked out a safe solution. Before I went to my room, she told me something I still think about. He'd been outside the hotel since that morning. To the man with the knife and the good vibes, please never come near me again. When my family first moved into our apartment, it was quiet. That didn't last long. Drug dealers moved in below us. Police visits became routine. Strangers wandered the stairs at all hours. Eventually, their customers started knocking on our door by mistake. One night, someone pounded on it like they were trying to break it down. I grabbed the biggest kitchen knife I could find and shouted that I was calling the police. Whoever it was ran. Later, my mother contacted the authorities. The police promised to investigate. The next morning, the dealers were gone, cleared out overnight. A few days later, they were back. That's when we realized someone was tipping them off. About a week later, I was home alone, fresh out of the shower, when someone slammed on our door. I assumed it was a delivery. The door burst open. A man with a gun rushed into my bedroom and threw me to the floor. I landed hard on my already injured wrist and felt it crunch. I was certain I was about to die. Then I saw the word police on his vest. They had the wrong address. He handed us a card, apologized, and left. The next day, the same officer returned with paperwork asking us to sign away any legal action. My mother refused and slammed the door in his face. That's when things escalated. Anonymous calls at all hours, breathing on the line, threats, my mother's car handle coated in chemicals, oil smeared across my windshield while driving, symbols nailed to our walls, items stolen from our porch, even drugs left outside our door. Terrified, I left the country for 6 months. Years later, I learned the search warrant listed 2 addresses interchangeably, ours and the real suspects. I still don't believe it was a mistake. It took years to feel normal again. It was after 2 a.m. and I was drunk, lost, and alone. My phone had died, and after wandering the streets for nearly an hour, I realized I had no idea where I was. I decided to walk toward my friend's place, even though I had no clue how far away it actually was. That's when a sedan suddenly swerved in front of me, blocking my path. The driver, a large, rough-looking man, stared at me through the open window and asked where I was going. Instead of reacting like a sane person, I waved and joked back. He told me to get in. Without thinking, I did. Inside the car, I noticed his arms were covered in tattoos, one wrapped in fresh bandages. Then I saw the gun tucked into his waistband. He casually told me he'd just been released from the hospital after being shot, that his girlfriend had left him, and that he was angry enough to rob someone if the opportunity came. Still, he drove me all the way to my destination. When we arrived, I made the worst decision possible and invited him inside. At one point, he placed his gun on top of a visible safe, silently reminding everyone in the room what he was capable of. Eventually, he left without incident. It wasn't until the next morning that my hands started shaking when I thought about how close that night came to ending very differently. It was just after midnight when I heard frantic knocking at my apartment door. At first, I ignored it, hoping it would stop. Then I heard a woman's voice, faint, shaky, crying, begging for help. My heart started racing as I moved toward the door and looked through the peephole. No one was there. The knocking started again, followed by the same pleading voice. What didn't make sense was that she was only knocking on my door. None of my neighbors' doors were being touched. That's when something felt very wrong. If someone truly needed help, wouldn't they knock on every door? I remembered hearing about criminals using recordings to lure people outside. I backed away and called the police. The dispatcher told me not to open the door under any circumstances. Police cars later drove through the complex, shining spotlights into the dark corners, but no one was found. I barely slept that night. How did they know I lived alone? Had they been watching me? Nothing like it has happened since, which somehow scares me more. I had only lived in my apartment for a few months when it happened. Late one night, while doing chores, I heard a soft knock at my door. It was quiet enough that I almost ignored it. When it came again, faster and more deliberate, my cat bolted into the bedroom. I slowly approached the door and looked through the peephole. A man I didn't recognize was standing inches away, far too close. His face was angled toward the peephole, like he knew I was watching. He wasn't knocking anymore. He was just waiting. Every instinct in my body told me not to answer. After a few minutes, he finally walked away. I convinced myself it was nothing and went to sleep. The next morning, the outer building door handle fell apart in my hand. The lock and screws were completely missing, as if someone had carefully dismantled it overnight. Police and maintenance were called, but no cameras had captured anything. None of my neighbors had seen the man. Nothing like it has happened since, but I still wonder how long he stood there before I noticed, and what would have happened if I had opened that door.